Despite losing their season opener at Arkansas, the Cincinnati Bearcats proved they still belong, handling a hostile environment along the way.
Are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. We are free and available everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel, now up to 515 subscribers and counting. Today's episode is brought to you by, today's episode, as you see, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So today is our film review and takeaways from the Bearcats season opener at Arkansas. Definitely still feeling like the Bearcats could have won. I don't feel as if they deserved to win given the amount of penalties that they had, given the 2 missed field goals. But at the end of the day, what stood out to me in the film review is the Bearcats still belong, man. Like the Cincinnati Bearcats, after losing 9 players to the NFL draft and entering a year where they're reloading, they're not rebuilding. We know that this was a theme this offseason, reloading, not rebuilding. But the Bearcats proved they still belong. It's something I said going in, that they had to show they still belong. Like after all these years, 45 straight weeks of being in the top 25, that unfortunately came to an end. That came to an end this week. Cincinnati just outside the top 25, still receiving 113 votes to get into the top 25. So that tells me it may not be long before the Bearcats get back in. But John Neighbors from Locked On Razorbacks talked about this. Being able to handle a hostile environment. And I'm watching the game for a second time, which, the reason why I do this, Justin Williams does this, James and Jake will do this for the Bengals. I think Jay Morrison will do this for the Bengals too. And I credit them for teaching me that skill. The reason I do this and we do this is there are things you miss watching the live game. Everything's happening so fast. You're so caught up in the game, trying to figure out what the biggest takeaway is, to record the Locked On Nows, to record the recap, that you miss some things. So a second time gives you the opportunity to, hear what the commentators are saying about the game and the two teams, and to maybe, go back and see some plays you forgot. So as I'm watching the game and I'm listening to how loud the crowd is, I'm realizing that, you know what? This is how it's going to be next year when the Bearcats go into the Big 12. You're a top 25 team who just made the college football playoff as a group of 5 team. You've earned the right to play in these kinds of games with this kind of environment. And I think the Bearcats were able to handle it. There were a lot of things that went wrong for the Bearcats in this game. We know that. 2 missed field goals, 2 turnovers, an interception. But the Bearcats kept coming back. Arkansas goes up 21-7 midway or early in the third quarter, and Ben Bryant just leads them down the field, hits Tyler Scott down the sideline, and then goes back to Nick Martiner over the top for a touchdown. So this is a team that has shown that they're not going to back down, and they're a team. I thought it was really interesting. Rod Gilmore, the color analyst for the game with Dave Fleming. By the way, Dave Fleming is a phenomenal play-by-play announcer. Great voice, great feel for the game. I thought Rod Gilmore, though, brought up an interesting point. Cincinnati, they heard all off season that they weren't physical enough for Alabama, and he thinks that this offensive line took that personally. And remember, I said it, the Bearcats won't tell you that they're affected by a ranking or someone saying something about them. They are. That adds fuel to their fire. And I thought their offensive line in a very physical game. Demolition. I heard it called Demolition Derby multiple times over the weekend. I thought their offensive line without Jake Renfro, who I can't believe I haven't mentioned yet this week. I will. I can't believe that I haven't mentioned that. But I thought their offensive line, with Gavin Gerhardt starting at center, James Tunstall at left tackle, I thought their offensive line, Joe Huber at right tackle, excuse me, sorry. I thought their offensive line played really well. Only giving up 3 sacks, which is half the total they gave up at Alabama. I really was impressed with the way they handled Arkansas's defensive front. I thought the Bearcats' defensive front did okay. You know, Jawan Briggs and Jabari Taylor, I thought, played well. Ivan Pace Jr. was a menace coming from linebacker. So Cincinnati heard that they weren't physical enough for Alabama. I don't believe that. I thought Alabama definitely won the battle at the line of scrimmage, but that doesn't mean that the Bearcats weren't physical enough for them. I thought Cincinnati did an extremely good job in this game on Saturday. So you're handling a crowd that was extremely loud, that was a sellout, and this is what playing in the Big 12 is going to be like. I thought the offensive line gave Ben Bryant an adequate amount of time to throw. Most times he dropped back to pass. I thought the running game was effective. I thought the passing game, being able to push the ball down the field, was effective in this game. You know, I counted 5 overthrows rewatching the game. 5 overthrows. So what that tells me is, we're going to talk about this in segment 3. What that tells me is the receivers were getting open. And I just think, you know, that we talked about being able to take chances, and you were going to be able to exploit Arkansas secondary. And I think they did. Like, you watch Tyler Scott cook some of their corners, and you watch Nick Martiner's touchdown. He beat his man off the line of scrimmage. It shows that this team, in their receiving core with the depth that it has, they're going to be able to burn secondaries. So, the 2 biggest takeaways, and there's more coming up. The 2 biggest takeaways, though, was that this team still belongs. They're not in the top 25 right now, and that's okay. But they can very easily get back there, I think, sooner rather than later. I thought it was going to be until like the middle of the season where they didn't get back. Now we're talking about, you know what? It might be 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. So the Bearcats absolutely still belong. They still belong. Even though they may not have a number next to their name right now, they still belong. They can go into an SEC environment. This was a true road game. Alabama was a neutral site game. A true road game. And whatever could have gone wrong seemingly did. And the Bearcats still only end up losing by 7, and they had chances to tie the game. That's a pretty strong performance and an encouraging performance to take away from this game. All right, coming up, we're going to go to Ben Bryant, the interception. But I'm rewatching the game, and before that, he's this team's starting quarterback for a reason. We will get into it after a word from LinkedIn. As you gear up for fall, just like the Bearcats are geared up for fall and hoping for their first win on Saturday, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 and delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Bearcats offensive coordinator Gino Guidugli has described Ben Bryant as having an NFL arm. That was on display on Saturday. And I know that you're frustrated as much as I am that he overthrew receivers, wide open receivers 5 times. I mean, there were a lot of egregious overthrows. Excuse me. But I thought he really displayed his NFL arm in the game, and you saw why. He's this team's starting quarterback. So he throws an interception in the first quarter on an out route, which is a really ambitious throw, and Rod Gilmore talked about it. If you're going to make that throw, you're going to have to throw it out towards the sidelines and up and over the defender. It's got to be a strong throw. If you leave it floating, that's going to make it easy for the defensive back to come in and pick it off, which is what McLaughlin did for Arkansas. But the play before, Brian hit Jaden Thompson on a very similar route. He hit Jaden Thompson on the near side, and that was the throw to the sideline. He had to make a long throw. He did. Thompson caught it and then ran all the way down inside the Arkansas 30-yard line. Now, here's the story from the game for me on Saturday. I'm watching the game at my near my mom's Charleston apartment, and there's a pool with a clubhouse area. So I'm watching the game outside by the pool, and the TV that's on ESPN didn't flip over to the Bearcats Arkansas game until the end of the North Carolina State ECU game. So the first play I saw was Bryant's interception. And this is why you go back and rewatch the game, because there's something you missed. I'm listening to the game on radio, so I'm trying to picture what's going on in my head. And when you're given the opportunity to listen to Dan Hoare call a Bearcats game, you take advantage of it. So I was okay listening to the first part of the game on radio. So the play before the interception, I'm rewatching the game and I'm saying to myself, okay, the interception, yeah, it may have set the tone for the first half. It may have shaken Ben Bryant's confidence a little bit. Maybe that's what led to the overthrows. Remember how I said on Tuesday, the Turning Point Tuesday, how I said yesterday, rather, I said that Ben Bryant's interception may have knocked the confidence out of him a little bit. Well, rewatching the game, I still think it did to a degree, but I also now don't think it did completely. Because he was making throws before that. I thought the first drive before the interception was a really strong drive by Ben Bryant and the Bearcats. And that's why it was so deflating in such a turning point. Because the interception, gave Arkansas 7 points. And unfortunately, like I said, it kind of shook Bryant a little bit. The Bearcats did get back down the field on their next possession. They did go down and try and score on their last possession of the first half. But I'm seeing a lot of good things from Ben Bryant. And I know I'm changing my stance. But Evan Prater took 1 snap in this game. And yes, he ran for 10 yards. I'm going to be honest, though. I'm going to be brutally honest. I think he ran because he bailed. I think he panicked a little bit in the pocket. And that's okay. It's your first snap in an SEC environment after a months-long quarterback battle. You're excited to be out there. And he actually did help the team. He put the Bearcats in position to convert a 3rd and 14 instead of 3rd and 20. So Ben Bryant showed a lot of good things in this game. Why he is this team's starting quarterback. He's got a good arm. He can make all kinds of throws. He's got to clean up some, overthrowing guys on deep passes. He did, unfortunately. That's not right what I was thinking about. And he showed he can push the ball down the field. Another thing I liked in this game was the wide receivers. And this Cincinnati team is really unique because in years past, they've been driven through their tight ends in the passing game. This year, while that still might be the case, touchdown for Leonard Taylor on Saturday, I think the wide receivers might be the strength of the passing game. I mean, you watch that game on Saturday and you go back and rewatch the game. The Bearcats receivers were cooking Arkansas secondary. Now, then again, Jalen Catalon missed a majority of the game with an injury. It's a secondary that is still, revamped, retooled, even though McLaughlin made one of the biggest plays of the game. But I'm rewatching the game, and I'm just saying to myself, if they can get their timing down with Ben Bryant, if they can get the chemistry improved, this is going to be a really, really good team offensively. It's going to be a very, very explosive. They have a very deep receiving core. Will Pauling, Jaden Thompson, Tyler Scott. I love Tyler Scott. He's got speed. He's got elusiveness. Nick Martiner, who can fly. Obviously, Josh Wiley and Leonard Taylor. And then you have Charles McClellan from out of the backfield. I mean, this receiving core is going to give a lot of opposing defenses fits. Josh Wiley needing to get more involved. I thought he had some nice catches. He had a great one-handed catch on the first possession, but I still want to see more from him. I felt like he wasn't targeted enough for as good as he is. By the way, a majority of his touchdowns in his career have come on the road. So they could have targeted him more in the red zone. They didn't. But again, it's only week 1. I thought Trey Tucker wasn't used effectively. They had him running a bunch of crossing routes. That's not Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker excels at go routes and jet sweeps. So while the Bearcats did show that their receiving core is going to be a lot better than in years past, unfortunately, the one thing we did not see in this game was Trey Tucker used effectively. He could have been used, way more in situations where he has excelled in the past. The touchdown in Notre Dame was a simple go route. His first touchdown of 2020 was a jet sweep against Austin Peay. Why aren't you using him that way? Trey Tucker's a guy who is meant to be on the outside running down the field. Now, he is very physical for his size, but you got to use him effectively if you're Cincinnati. So, Ben Bryant again confirmed what Gino Guidugli said. He has an NFL arm. He's only going to get better from here. The interception he threw in the first quarter, rather, it was a throw he made on the play before it. Sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. So now my stance on the quarterback battle is Ben Bryant is clearly more ready than Evan Prater, and that's okay. That is okay. You have a veteran leading your team. Ben Bryant is not Desmond Ridder. But who he is a guy that can lead the Bearcats back to a conference championship game and potentially a conference championship win. That will be his next big start. Maybe Central Florida, because they're also receiving votes, and they looked pretty good last week. But as far as what Ben Bryant's going to give this team this season, if you're still in the camp of I want Evan Prater as my quarterback, I understand, but I'm changing my stance, and I apologize for everything I said about Ben Bryant, sort of dismissing how effective he can be. I was of the essence at the end of the first half to maybe give Evan Prater a chance, but very similar to how John Harbaugh did not take Lamar Jackson out of his first playoff game with the Ravens, Luke Fickell did not take Ben Bryant out of the game. And all Ben Bryant did was come back and respond. With 2 touchdown passes in the second half, 14 of 23 for over 200 yards. That's some admirable toughness right there. That's some admirable resiliency. I can get behind that. I really can. All right, coming up, my other takeaways from this Bearcats game, including the question that all of you have from Saturday. I'll get into it after a word from two of our sponsors. So there are, of course, other takeaways from the game on Saturday, and it's not just what's happening on the field, but what the announcers are saying. That's a reason why I rewatched the game, because I'm not totally paying attention to what the announcers are saying during the game, but I do when I'm rewatching the game. So, Rod Gilmore said right before kickoff, because Tiffany Blackman, the sideline reporter, had talked about how Jake Renfro was lost for the season. That's going to be on tomorrow's show, and how it affects Cincinnati going forward. But Rod Gilmore said that, in the environment the Bearcats were playing in, and with Gavin Gerhardt starting an offensive line and center, and Joe Huber starting at right tackle, right before kickoff, Rod Gilmore said, you don't want any false starts. Well, unfortunately, the Bearcats had quite a few of those. I thought Wilson Huber had a great opening, a great third down tackle on the Bearcats' opening drive. He gang tackled the receiver, just would not let him get away. As I mentioned, Wiley with a great one-handed catch on the first possession. Ben Bryant even had a great physical run on third down. The Bearcats were really good on third down in this game. 3 for 3 on their opening drive alone. Ben Bryant with a physical run. He was stacked up behind the line to gain, and he pushed the pile himself, churned the legs together. That was a really – I had forgotten about that play, but great effort by Bryant. What is this? On that third down, Rod Gilmore said that you cannot question Ben Bryant's toughness. So it's a sign of things to come in the second half, with being able to come back after a lackluster first half. There are other things. Dante Corleone, guy from Coleraine, new to the defensive line. He made a great tackle late in the first. I think it was in the first quarter, maybe. It might have been the second quarter, but he was in the trenches, and then he runs over to the right side, the far side of the field, and makes a tackle. So for as big as he is, and he's a big dude, he can run. Arkansas had a big run early in the second quarter, wiped out by a holding penalty on Trey Knox, who had a really, really nice game for Arkansas in the passing game. Rod Gilmore, like me and maybe a lot of you, suggested that Evan Prater plays or gets playing time midway through the second quarter. Then there's a run with the Bearcats down 14-0, where Ben Bryant takes a quarterback run to the outside, but he just couldn't be fast enough to seal the edge. He stopped and tried to cut back inside. It got the Bearcats down to the 4. It was a good run, but it could have been a better run. And remember how I said Ben Bryant has minus 35 rushing yards in his career, or had that coming in. It's clear that the one dimension you won't have with Ben Bryant is his ability to run, and that's okay, I think. And that might be where you see Evan Prater come in for, specific, plays. If you want a quarterback run, okay. Dave Fleming, he said that, running is not Ben Bryant's game. The Arkansas with a key third down conversion, 3rd and 6 with 10:02 to play in the third quarter after the Bearcats made it 21-14. On the 4th and goal from the 3-yard line, where the Bearcats had their 4th penalty on that drive, down 21-14, you can see Dylan O'Quinn right before he gets set. He does this. I think he was trying to get Ben Bryant to make sure he got the playoff and to get things going at the line of scrimmage. Other key plays, Deshaun Pace's pass interference with 3:36 to play in the third quarter. That came on a 3rd and 6. Huge. Or it might have been 3rd and 4. Huge momentum swinger. The Bearcats had to stop. It was a questionable call. I don't disagree with it. Pace had his back turned to the play the whole time. covering the receiver down the field. Evan Prater, of course, on his one play, didn't really stay in the pocket, didn't really give himself time in the pocket. Announcers were really starting to, laugh almost at the Bearcats committing too many penalties. Tyler Scott had a receptionist to set up the Bearcats for Leonard Taylor's touchdown. He caught a pass on the outside, cut back to the inside, juke defenders. So not only can he run down the field, but he can also his agility is really, really good. 3 third-down conversions for Arkansas on the final drive, including a 3rd-and-9 run by KJ Jefferson. Brian Threats with a missed tackle before the sticks. And here's the question that you all want to know, and this is ridiculous that it came to this. I counted 11 times a Bearcats player's helmet came off. 11 times. The announcers asked at the end of the game, an over-under doesn't. Embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. Buckle your chin strap. Now, I'm not sure if that's on the players. I'm not sure if that's on the equipment staff. But now I'm fearing this is something we're going to have to monitor. And what if it happens to a key player in a key game and you don't have that player on the field? Where in the playbook do you go to? Who do you go to? Like, what if Ben Bryant is not on the field for a critical play at UCF or in a championship game? What if Tyler Scott is not available to streak down the field on 3rd and 10 late in the game? What if Charles McClelland can't be on the field for a play specifically designed for him in a situation? This is a problem that must be corrected. Like, it shouldn't happen at all if it happens once, okay, freak accident. But 11, 6 in the first half, 5 in the second half, by the way. 11 times a helmet comes off. Inexcusable. But overall, a really strong effort by the Bearcats, showing they belong. They handled a very hostile environment that was a sellout crowd in SEC country on a Saturday afternoon against a team and program and fan base that's enjoying potentially a dream season. And you only lose that game by 7. You've come a long way since the Cotton Bowl. Now, it's a matter of cleaning up the mistakes. And it doesn't have to be all the way corrected this week. What it does is eventually, by the road trip at SMU and UCF, make sure your chin straps are buckled, and the penalties have to get cleaned up as well. The Bearcats only had, I think, 2 or 3 penalties before that drive where they had 4 penalties. So they were doing really well. Believe it or not, they were doing really well. It just, when they needed to continue doing well, they weren't. All right, that's going to do it for me today here on Locked On Bearcats. Thank you so much for making it your first listen every day. On tomorrow's show, Jake Renfro is out for the season, as was reported Saturday right before kickoff with a meniscus injury. That's really unfortunate for the Bearcats' first-team All-AAC center. So we'll talk about how that affects Cincinnati and the college football playoff expanding, announcing that it's going to expand right before the first game. If only that was the case this year, because then we'd be talking about a Cincinnati team that still would have an opportunity to get into the college football playoff. But we'll talk about what it means for the Bearcats this year and going forward into the Big 12. Thanks again for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. It's an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Frankie_Natty with 2 N's and an ATI. You can follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_, and email me at alex3frank@gmail.com. all lowercase. And don't forget to subscribe to our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel, now up to 516 subscribers and counting. Look at that. We have one subscriber as we're recording this show, one new subscriber. So I'm Alex Frank from the Locked On Bearcats podcast. Have a great rest of your day. And I will be back tomorrow to talk about Jake Renfro and the college football playoff expanding. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll be back tomorrow right here on Locked On Bearcats, your team, or part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.